Good morning and welcome back to the Adventures of Mac Anthea. In today's video I'm going to do a step-by-step guide on how to fit a set of downhill mountain bike forks to a mountain bike. Okay, so if this was a motorcycle and I was just sort of greasing the bearings or adjusting the tension on the forks, I would put this on ground level, I'd jack up the bike and then I'd just release the yokes, lower the actual shaft out, clean and grease and then put back up in retention. But being as this is a bicycle and we're actually replacing the forks completely, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to start by taking the wheel off, the front wheel off here. We're going to take off the caliper down here, strap that out of the way, probably up here out of the way, make sure we don't press the brake, and we'll start there. Okay, so that's the wheel off. Next what we're going to do is we're going to take this sort of this bolt out here, Allen bolt here, which retains the hydraulic pipe for the front brake caliper. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to release these two Allen bolts here and then strap this up out the way. So that's off, cable out the way, clip back in so we don't lose it. No good for this bike, but probably good for another bike, these forks. Okay. And then we've got the caliper, just two bolts so in nice and tight. Right, and I've noticed here that there's a series of sort of adjustable washers, some of them are cones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my mobile phone and just take a photo of that, just so I remember for reassembly. Okay, we'll continue on with releasing these bolts. Okay, and I'm going to move this round and cable tie a bit up here somewhere, probably to that. Okay, hopefully that's out of the way, we won't have to move it again. Okay, so now I've done all the lower stuff on the bike. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lower down this mount here. I love this new stand, it's brilliant, it saves so much time. Yeah, I'm just going to lower the bike down a bit and then I can get access to the top end of the forks. Okay, so I've got that in the lowest position. I think I'm going to pop something just under that rear wheel, jack it up a bit, because it's, even though the brace is there, it's more or less as far back as it will go, you know, without interfering on the cables on the crossbar there. I'd like to see the front end down a bit, see what we've got kicking around. Yeah, that looks like it's going to do the job. There you go, perfect. So that's all them loosened off. In a minute we're going to loosen this top bolt here and then we're going to slide the actual whole fork out. Now a few things I just want to point out which is slightly different on these downhill forks from a standard fork is we have these spacers. Now I've currently put them above, but you've got several options with these downhill forks which I shall show you when I refit the other forks on. But you can actually move these spacers up from between the top of the crown and the handlebars, actually in between the actual the head and the actual bottom of the crown. You can put them in there, widen this length here and then make this length shorter, so you can do various adjustments on the bike to suit yourself. Okay, so let's carry on with removing that top nut on there and see if these forks are just going to slide out. Okay, I've noticed there's an extra space on there, so again I'm going to take a photo. Carefully try and slide the handlebars off. Right, what I'm going to do now, because this is probably going to drop, I'm just going to quickly tighten up one of these top crown ones there. That should hold that in, so I can get the forks up and strapped out the way. Okay, so we've got the handlebars off here. I've just strapped them to the support here. I've used one of these Velcro straps. I carry these around for strapping things on and that sort of thing. And I've also quickly put a bag over the caliper because that was bashing around on the new paintwork and we don't want that. So yeah, we've got these three spacers here. So you can adapt them however you want, you know, between the handlebars and the crown, or between the bottom of the crown and the head here. So I'll take them off, put them to one side, and now I'm going to re-release this one I just tweaked off to stop them from sliding back through, and hopefully it will slide out. Gently does it, gently move around the cables. There we go, and we're off. So we're back over to the workbench here. Obviously we need to take this this top crown off the new forks here, and these, as you can see, have got no bearings. Now I'd always advocate putting new bearings whenever you fit new forks in, but these forks over here, they're exactly the same size as the main shaft. They've never been used. I've ridden it like 200 metres down the road and that's it. These just slip straight off. You see that? They just slip straight off. So we're going to slip them straight off, straight on here, straight onto the new forks, and we'll reuse them. Okay, so it's looking like this bit here, hope you're getting that in shot, is on a little bit tight. I've had this before when I've placed the fork, so I'm just going to gently prise that up, and hopefully this bit's just slightly wider at the bottom here, and I'll be able to gently prise it off there and reuse it. Okay, so that's turned out to be a bit of a tighter job than I thought getting that out, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this completely from the forks. I might have to get it in a vise or something just to try and clip that off. Okay guys, sorry I didn't film that. I just quickly nipped in the workshop and put it in the vise, but basically that's it off there. I used a blunt wood chisel in there, clamped it in the vise and gently tapped it sort of between there to gently prise it off. Obviously you've got to be careful. The important bit is this face here where the bearing rolls, and around here, and you don't want to be damaging that, which I haven't. So yeah, that should be perfectly reusable. Let's see if we can get them on the new forks. Okay, I've had a quick look around, try and find some tubing that's going to slide over there and push it down, but I can't really find anything. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try the old part of the old fork, slide that over gently, and we'll try a nylon mallet and see if that's going to tap that down. Yeah, very little pressure, that's done that perfect, hasn't even damaged the old yoke. So there we go, ready for the next stage. Okay, and then we've got going to take this dust cover, that on first, sit that into place, ball bearings down, and onto the seat. And we're ready for the next stage. So looking at these forks, I want this lower yoke here quite a way further up the tubes here. So I'm just going to guesstimate for the time being and fine tune it later, and just move that up slightly. About there, let's try it there. Right, and now we'll take it over and try it back on the bike. Okay, so I'm just going to slide this gently up into here. Barely remember which way these cables went round. Let's go for the inside for now. Yeah, thank you for that. Go. Right, I'm just going to quickly tighten this up momentarily because, of course, our fits end up back on the floor as usual. Okay, that was quite fiddly in the end, that. Quickly lock it off gently. So, of course, the cables are the wrong way round here, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jiggle them about a bit, but I've also located another problem. These aren't going to be sort of straight fit on. This tube's too long, which I suspect is intentional for larger sort of frame heads here. So it looks like we're probably going to have to cut this tube down, but I think we're just going to get the cables in the right place first, line it all up, offer it all up, and then take some measurements. Okay, so that's just temporarily just got the cables back into line so we see what's what. Now I think we're going to try and lower these fork legs down. Okay, so we're pretty much at that. Now I'm just going to lower down the handlebars and see how much excess rod we've got. Okay, and that's about as far as we're going to go down. So we've got to a point here where we have to make some decisions, and I certainly don't want to be making any irreversible decisions. I'll put the wheel on just quickly back on to see what it looks like. This is where more or less I want the forks to be. But we've got quite a lot of this left at the top here. I've quickly mounted the handlebars on with just enough sort of space inside so that I could, you know, tighten it up and adjust the bearings, providing there was enough spaces below. Obviously these spaces aren't going to do that. Now, I don't doubt for a second that if I cut the tube and the fork and the handlebars were lower down, they would look better. But I'm not one who ever takes sort of looks over practicality, and you know, if it's going to be more practical and better to ride with the handlebars higher, I'd rather do that. And of course, once I've cut that tube here, you know, I could just cut that off and over it. It's pretty much, you know, irreversible. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to order some more spacers to fill this gap up to here. See if I can, you know, buy some longer ones and get them to come and put them on, try it before I make a final decision. And if I find, yeah, the handlebars are too high and it doesn't suit me, you know, or it's not going to do what I want it to do, because obviously I want to get my weight over the handlebars, and my handlebars being too high on my other bicycle is part of the problem of doing that. So yeah, with that, and then trying to make a final decision, and then if I feel I need to cut it afterwards, then I will do. Good morning and welcome back. It's been a few days since we were working on the forks of this bicycle. I had a birthday, 56, surprised I made that, and I also had a good search online for components for this steering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin you around and show you what I've come up with. Okay, so I tried the handlebars all the way right up to the top there. Took the bike up off the stand, sat on top of it, and the steering position was great. It was perfect for me. I then offered up the actual brake caliper and the brake line down here, and I actually found, even though it wasn't particularly pulling on the unions, it was quite tight. And yeah, I wasn't happy with that, even though, you know, the forks are fully extended, won't go anymore. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll sacrifice a centimetre sort of off the top here, lower the forks down, the handlebars down a little bit, and just to have them a little bit lower, just to give us a little bit of slack. And that's what we've got now. We've got a nice little bit of slack there. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So that means instead of having a 60mm space between here, I want a 50mm space, which I've now ordered. I'm going to have a 10mm space just on the top there, which is barely noticeable, before I screw in the actual top component to tighten the wheel bearings. So this morning I've got up, cut a bit of old scrap tube temporarily because it's on audit with 10 days for this aluminium spaces to come. Yeah, a bit of scrap steel tube, cut it to 50mm and splashed a bit of paint on it, and that's dry now, so we'll get hold of that in a minute and we'll start fitting that so we can get the actual steering bearings adjusted and get this bike test ridden. Okay, so we've got our new steel spacer here. It turns out the bicycle stems are the same bore as wheelbarrow handles, so yeah, no expense spared on this channel. Okay, so we're going to loosen off these bolts off here, lift this off, slide this on, put it back on, and get ready for adjustment. I've only lightly tweaked these up, so not a lot of work to do. So see if we can gently plies this off. Okay, we're off. Hopefully the spacer's going to fit on. And we'll slide this back down. Okay, done. Tweak one of these back up again gently for now. And then I'm just going to loosely fit the caliper. I will adjust it up later. Okay, so that's the caliper just loosely put on for now. So we're going to carry on doing the tension on the steering bearings, but before we can do that, we're going to have the bike down off the rack. We're going to have to put the insert in here, the threaded insert in here, ready to accept the tensioner. So I'm going to get on with that, and I'll bring you back in. Okay, so we're all set to put this gubbins here into the inside. I've momentarily put a long bolt with 6mm thread in there, and I think that's going to have to be tapped into there. Now it looks like it's going to be quite tight, so I'm a bit reluctant to bash around on top of there with the wheel in there. I'm thinking, you know, you could cause damage to the wheels. It's going to be quite hard shocks going into there to get that to seat. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to, I mean, obviously this would be better done with the forks out, but how are we to know, you know, whether we want to keep this stem this long and various other things, you know, we just don't know. And I'm not taking these forks all the way off again just to tap this bit in. So I think I'll take the wheel off. I'm going to jam up a piece of a plank of wood up from the floor onto the underside of there to brace it, and then I'll tap this gubbins into the top of this tube. Got that. Okay, and that seems to be in nicely. Okay, so we're all back on the stand here. I've got my 10mm spacer. That just gives us about 4mm down below the here for us to give us some adjustment up. Loosely screw that in. Okay, we can start adjustment. So let's just take a minute and I'll talk about steering adjustment here and how I'm going to adjust this up. Okay, so steering tension on bicycles, a subject that obviously opinions vary on greatly, but I think the long and short of it is, at the end of the day, with a bicycle, as long as you haven't got play in the steering, or you haven't got them so over tightened that they're actually going to cause damage to the components, the bearing components, you're pretty safe. Now, of course, that's a completely different story on a motorcycle. I've got a cruiser which is weighing in about 340 to 350 kilos, and getting some tension, the correct tension on the steering, is really important. Otherwise, you end up having sort of speed wobbles at high speed, which isn't a nice experience when, like I say, you're a 340, 350 kilo machine between your legs. Not nice at all. So yeah, it is important on that. But what we do on motorcycles is we use, or particularly cruisers, we use something called the flop test, and that's what I'm going to use on this bicycle. Now, the reason for this isn't because of actually riding, it's actually, strange enough, it's parking. We're often going up really steep trails, it's loose shale and that sort of thing, and because we're YouTubers, we're often, having to manage with sort of tripods and cameras and drones, and when you come to park on the side of a mountainside, you're obviously trying to park along the incline, so that it won't go rolling off on its own. Or if you do park it up the incline, you're trying to shove with your foot, kick with your foot or up behind the back wheel and that. And the last thing you need is your bloody steering flapping from one side to the other all over the place, because it flaps off to the right normally, and then it goes turning around, and then it goes shooting off down the hillside. So yeah, I prefer on my bicycles to have just a slight bit of tension on the steering, because when I pop my bicycle up and the steering straight, I want it to stay straight. I don't want it flopping off to the left and right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a method that I'm going to use on a bicycle and how to achieve that. So in a minute, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower down this this rack down to the lowest position, and I'm going to tilt the bicycle slightly up so the front end's slightly higher, and then I'll show you the actual flop test. Okay, so we've got the bicycle set up with the rear end low and the front end in high up off the ground. Now, this isn't a mega complicated or a scientific way of setting it. It's very simple. All you do is you put your steering straight and you tap your wheel to one side. And what we're aiming to do, instead of it flopping, and what it would normally do is bounce off the stops on a motorcycle, you're just looking for that steering to gently fall to one side, which you can see it's not doing there. It's actually bouncing off the stops. I'll do it the other way. So we're going to put a bit more tension on this centre post. So currently I've got the forks exactly where I want them at the top here, so I don't want that to alter, so we're going to keep these Allen keys actually tight. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to loose off the bottom ones, so that then this yoke, as I tighten, will be dragged up and we'll put tension on the bearings without altering the top setting up here and having to redo that again. So I'm going to loosen these two off, one on each side. There we go. One round onto here, that off. That's that loose. Round up onto the steering. Loosen the handlebar bracket off. Slack. And then round onto this side. I think this is already slackened off anyway. So now we're at the point where we can start tightening up the centre bolt and start pulling and compressing the bearings. Okay, I've just tweaked it up only a little bit and we'll give it another test. That's not bad. It's falling. Not on that side so much. Got a bit of a wiggle work my way in. I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm just going to do a little bit more, a little tight, bit of a tweak more, just to see. I might have to loosen it off again. Okay. Obviously the steering on the bicycle isn't as heavy as on the motorcycle. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it like that for now because I've got the new spacers to come. I'll ride it a little bit as well to get it worked in and then readjust. But I think for now we'll settle for that. We'll tweak these bolts up here on the bottom because that's obviously where we want it. We'll tweak the handlebars back up again and then we're ready to fit the brakes and get the brakes readjusted to the front wheel. Okay, so now we're getting to the final stages of getting the caliper back on and adjusted up. This is a little thing that I've found actually whilst working on other bikes, in particular with V brakes, it gets even more exaggerated than with disc brakes. When you put the front wheel back on the bike and it's actually up on the stand, it doesn't always seat fully up into the forks or, you know, into the rear swing arm there. It doesn't always sit completely up in there, and it might only be half a millimetre or something, but of course obviously with V-brakes that gets exaggerated because by the time you get to the outside of the wheel rather than the centre, you know, that could be, you know, 1 or 2 millimetres out and could be rubbing on your brake pads. So what I do now is once I'm happy with everything, I've not been able to show you this because I really need 2 people to do it, is I take the bike down off of the stand, I sort of get it upright, I loosen off the axle completely, the front axle, I rock it backs and forwards a few times just to make sure that the axle's seated completely up into the forks, and then I retighten the bar up. It's the only way to make sure that they're seated fully up under the bike's own weight up into the bottom of the forks there. So I'm going to do that and then we'll get it back up onto the stand and we'll get to the final stages of adjusting the caliper. Okay, so this is only just on loosely, just so I could make sure I've got, you know, enough length on that on the brake line. So I've got the bolt out. It has still got a bit of a blue thread lock on it, but just to be safe I'm going to put some fresh on it. So a little bit of thread lock will do. And as per the photos earlier, I'm going to fit this in reverse, this washer here, cone washer, and tighten that up a little, and then repeat process on the bottom one. Okay, I'm going to tighten them up, but leave them the last few millimetres, ready for the next step. Okay, so there's still some movement in this brake. Okay, now I'm just going to put one of these straps on. This is a UK style bike rather than a Euro bike, so the front brake's actually on the right hand side, the same as a motorbike, which I prefer actually. And I'm just going to put the strap, really handy strap for when you're going up into the mountains. You can put a brake on if you park up and it's acts sort of like a handbrake, I suppose. And I'm just going to put that brake on tightly with a strap. There we go. Okay, so now we've got this, it's clamped to the disc. So we know this is exactly where it wants to be. We'll just tweak up this last sort of 1/2 mil and that should be spot on. But what we'll do is we'll go around, we'll release the brake and see if the wheel spins freely. There we go, completely free, no binding or grinding. Try that one more time. Same again, you hear there on the microphone, there's absolutely no binding or grinding whatsoever. So our brakes are spot on. Okay, so we've just gone around to the back there. I haven't tested these brakes at all, but I'm going to spin this wheel and I'm sure you can pick that up on the mic there. That's definitely catching, so once we've got it up on the rack we'll adjust this one the same way. So that brings us to the end of our step-by-step fork swap tutorial. Now obviously there's still quite a bit to do to these forks. I need to adjust the pressure, obviously the air pressure to my weight. I have to just rebound obviously to, you know, the type of terrain I'm going over and what have you. But there's a lot of videos out there for people far more experienced on this sort of thing and a lot more knowledgeable than me, so I think I'll probably leave that to them. Okay then, so all that remains is to thank you for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe button and I'll see you next time.